everybody, and welcome to Sports Exchange. Yes, we have a little bit of a different look today because Scott is not with us today. He is actually recovering from a medical procedure that he had earlier today. So in steps me, a different version of Scott, right? The softer, more gentle.
He would think that.
But I have a dynamo crew. So my crew consists of, next to me, George Eichhorn.
Good evening. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. And beneath me is Jacob Christner, the pundit.
It's the only way that I'm beneath something. Well, I'm glad to be here tonight.
And then there's JB Ellis.
How's it going, everybody?
It's going. It's going. So I'm going to start us off with our first topic. And our first topic is going to be talking about old versus new, kind of, when we're talking about the transfer portal. Because I want to talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady never saw the field his first year at the University of Michigan. In his second year, he attempted a total of 5 passes. He was so buried on the Wolverines' depth chart that he went into head coach Lloyd Carr's office to request a release, which was the rule back then, so he could transfer to another program. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe the coaches were missing something. Maybe it was a combination. Whatever it was, he wanted out. It'll be the biggest mistake of your life, Carr told Brady. You came here to be the best. You came here because of the great competition. If you walk away now, you'll always wish you had stayed and tried to compete. You'll always wonder what would have happened if you stayed. Carr told him to take the night to think it over. If Brady still wanted to transfer, he would help Carr. Carr would help him. The next day, Brady arrived at the coach's office with a new mindset. He said, I'm staying, and I'm going to prove to you I am a great quarterback. Nowadays, we see these quarterbacks or other positions players saying, I want to transfer out. I'm going to join the portal. In fact, I believe the number is at least 1,500 already since Monday. Tell me your thoughts about the transfer portal and whether you think it is good for the game or not. And we're going to start with George.
Oh, lucky me.
Lucky you.
This is ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. I'm sorry. I am not a fan of this. When I heard those numbers, Candy and guys, I could not believe it. I was flabbergasted that it was that high within the first couple days after what was the end of the season for most of the, obviously the regular season is over now. And most of the teams that, some of which are gearing up for the bowl season. Well, of course, if you go into the portal, you're probably not going to want to play for the old team. You won't be allowed, or whatever's going to happen with all those bowl game participants. But I think it's just gone completely overboard. I mean, it's gotten way out of hand. And I'm glad you brought up that story about Brady, because that's a classic. And Lloyd Carr was one of the nicest guys and one of the best coaches, you know, in Michigan football history, obviously. I put him right up there, right after Bo Schembechler. And it's a great story. And I'm glad you repeated it, like I said, Candy, because it tells a lot of an era that we don't have anymore. Let's face it. I mean, that was an era where, yeah, we wanted you to stay. Sorry, we don't have reps for you right now in year one, or like you said, even in year two. And of course, nobody could predict his stardom. I mean, you know, yeah, he had good tools, he had good arm, good whatever. But Tom Brady's case, I mean, you know, he stuck it out, and that's just a great story. So, getting back to your question, no, I'm not a big fan of it, and I'm appalled that these numbers are so high. I'm sorry. Call me old school, call me what you want, but it's gotten way out of hand.
JB, your take.
So, I mean, part of the numbers, though, are kids that are playing fifth-year graduate school ball. So that part you got to throw in there. So that's a decent percentage. Those are probably guys that are never going to get to the NFL, or, you know, may want to just play another year so that they have a better chance of getting drafted higher. But I would think, in all honesty, most college kids that are playing any sport probably go through what Tom went through, and whether they decide to go into the portal or not, I think that's a natural reaction. Something's going to happen through the course of a season or a game, and it's gonna bring you to that point where you say, "Do I want to really be here?" Because at 18, 19, 20, you don't have the maturity that you have when you get to your 30s and older in life, that we all have now. You know, at 20, I get that without a doubt. That's an issue. But my thinking would be, the amount of people, though, when they changed the rule, also they went down to, where they used to have, a longer period where the kids had to sit out. I'm glad that they changed that part of it, because it kind of stunk. If the coach left and you wanted to transfer, you had to sit out so long. They kind of changed that rule, made it a little bit quicker for the kids to get it back into the game. But I still think that because it's so easy now to transfer, it takes away from building teams. So I mean, there's pros and cons to it, and I see both sides. And I think Tom Brady's story is not a unique one. I think it happens to 99% of college athletes, because there's always some sort of dilemma, whether it's being away from home the first time, you're not getting the playing time. You were the best person in your high school. Now, you're playing with better competition. You're not the best anymore. So I think there's a bunch of different reasons why that's not a unique story. And I'm glad that there's the options there, but I think it's overused.
Jacob.
Two things to this story here. Number one, I had read the Brady story. Part of the thing was, after he got out of Carr's office, he went to one of the lower assistant coaches. The assistant coach said to him, "Okay, you're getting 2 reps." And at this point, he's getting maybe 1 rep, maybe 0 sometimes. You get 2 reps, make these the very best 2 reps, to the point where you're in the Super Bowl. Run out there like it's the Super Bowl. Even if it's 2 reps, no one sees you. He finally got like 2 reps one day, nailed them. And then it was like a week. He nailed those. Now all of a sudden it was 5 reps. Then 10. Later in the camp, he got from 4th string to 3rd string. And then it goes on and on and on. And it's the whole idea, you just make everything make sense, serious. Not make sense, but just serious, that you treat everything, even if it's just little, you treat it like it's a Super Bowl. That was the one. But the thing about this right now is I've got another name right now that's just going to be transferring, Kyle McCord. And why is he transferring? This is going to be on Pundit tomorrow night. But I'll just give a little preview of this. He's in it because he was getting threatened by the stupid fan base for losing to Michigan. So he's transferring out. And again, I hate fans for a reason. So many of them. I hate them. It's like, I don't care if you lost a lot of money in your bets. I don't care if you're your rivals. I don't care. They're still human beings, and you're a 13-year-old emotional teenage girl in about a 25-year-old body. This is what you are, and you're like a field Swifty, Justin Field Swifty. That's a 40-year-old man at 13-year-old mind. He's like, it is whatsoever. It's like, and now you're going to lose a quarterback. And what happens if the other quarterback isn't better? And so, and it's like, either way though, but the whole transfer deal by itself, you're saying it right, JB. A lot of them are that. But then there are some, you get like Spencer Rattler who left, and now he wants to go to the NFL draft. He'll be a 7th round pick. Maybe. And it's one of those things, you can just hurt yourself with your whole situation because of your own ego.
Let's face it, times have definitely changed since Brady was, at Michigan. Sport has changed. NIL has changed things. And let's face it, coaches have changed. And coaches are on the hot seat so much quicker. So it could be that you came to a school because of a coach, and now the coach might not be there anymore. So is that maybe why you want to transfer? There's a lot of reasons. I do think some are good, some are not good, but I think it depends that, yes, it's being overused at this point. Yeah. But I feel bad for Kyle because let's face it, they only have 1 loss on their season. He was 11-1 as a starter for Ohio State, and yet now he's transferring out. Crazy times.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yep.
But
Okay.
that loss is always a big one, obviously. That's the biggest game of the year for both those teams typically, and but it'll be a different ball game next year when the expansion of the Big Ten takes place.
Right, because they might not play each other every year now.
Right.
So, moving on, there's another controversial college football playoffs. Question is, should Florida State be in or be out? A lot of people are talking about this. Let's start with Jacob this time.
It is a hard thing. They should be in, but got to remember this part whatsoever. If it was Jordan, if it was their quarterback didn't blow his knee out, they would be. Let's just be very honest. That third string quarterback was horrible, and they did not want to get a first round where they lose 45-7, which that's about the score they'll lose to Georgia if that guy's playing. It's like that's exactly. Hello, Fernando. How are you? It's like, hello, Ralph. How's it going? No, that is exactly what's going to be, and that's what they were afraid of. And it's all. I think the whole deal with Iowa when they lost the game against Minnesota. Not saying that they had a big playoff chance, but I always say something along the lines of, it's still television, it's still entertainment. And when they lost to Minnesota because of a stupid call, there's no question TV had a reason for that, because they don't want Iowa near that and a possibility of a 6-3 halftime score or 3-0, because Iowa's defense was so good. And they're afraid of those type of things. And the biggest thing about Florida State is that has the possibility of that with a third string quarterback. So do I think they belong there? Yes, because of their body of work. Did I believe the minute that kid was in there and they saw that they weren't going to put him in? Absolutely. They just saw the kid play like, no way.
JB.
It's absolutely absurd. It's criminal. It's disgusting. It's everything wrong with college football the way it is. They were undefeated. They play in a Power 5 conference. They beat everybody on their damn schedule. I don't care if George was playing quarterback, if Jacob was playing quarterback. It doesn't make a difference. They didn't
I might
lose.
be better.
You know, they won the ACC championship. They beat a good Louisville team. Doesn't matter. I mean, the damn kid said he wishes he would have hurt his leg earlier in the year so that his team would have been given a fair shot. How absurd is that he would have to say that? You know, what is wrong with the college football playoff? Meanwhile, Alabama, who happened to beat Georgia but lost to Texas, somehow is ranked 4th. So they beat Georgia. Georgia's the champion. And then why isn't Georgia in? Because of the champion last year? Their one loss is to Alabama, who really hasn't done much. They're not an impressive team. So if you're going to put them in, Florida State should be in. And why do we skip over Georgia? The committee has put 2 SEC teams in before, and it happened where, you know, the number 2 seed in the SEC beat the number 1 seed, and we put them both in. So why aren't they both in? But to exclude Florida State is criminal. They are undefeated. They took care of everybody. They were by far the best team in the ACC. And you can only play who's on your schedule. Schedules are done years in advance. It's not like they woke up, you know, September 1st and said, okay, these are our games. This is who we're playing. You know, this was probably done 5-6 years ago. They went out there, took care of everybody. The defense stepped up after the injury to the quarterback. It's absurd. And this is the problem with the college football playoffs. It's going to get worse now with 12 teams, because it's not the answer to have 12 teams. 6 teams was the answer. Every power conference would have gotten the winner, and that was it. If you won your conference, you're in. And then the best group of 5 team, and we're happy. We don't need 12. 12 means Alabama is going to be in every year. Do we want to see Alabama in? No, it's going to be Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State every year. You know, Notre Dame probably.
That's my point. Notre Dame, that's doing this because of Notre Dame.
It's going to be the same teams. You'll get 1 or 2 sprinkled in that'll be new every year, but it's going to be monotonous and boring.
No, you're right. I'm just saying this, JB. I'm agreeing with you. Don't get that wrong. I think it's ridiculous. I want you to know that. The thing about it is when I saw that game with Florida State and Louisville, I'm like, they're not making it, even if they win.
Listen, we all knew they weren't going to make it. I had a bet in that they weren't going to make it.
Yeah.
Great odds because
but what you're saying, like what you were saying though about that is you were saying Georgia and all them bringing them in Alabama. That goes without saying. The whole point is Notre Dame. The whole point is Notre Dame. They have a big following. They want that rating.
And you realize the best thing that the committee did, which was hysterical, they threw out the guy from North Carolina State. I forget what his title was. I want to say athletic director, but I could be wrong, to explain why they didn't choose Florida State. So they used the guy on the committee from the ACC to say why the best team in their conference didn't get in. And then, of course, the conference is defending Florida State. So, it's a horrible look. It really is.
George.
Well, I cannot disagree with either of my colleagues, any of you. I thought it was a terrible decision, too. And you're right, JB, about Georgia. I mean, I could see them dropping from 1 to 4, but not totally out of the picture after they put together quite a great season. But the fact that these guys, and the old thing is sitting in a cigar smoked room, making these kind of decisions about who's going and who's not, it's just not right as far as that goes. You can't do that with a team like you guys said, Power 5 and undefeated. I mean, Florida State deserves to be in this tournament, 4-team tournament, I call it. It's just, I think it's ludicrous. I really do. I mean, there's no question about it. They're in love with Alabama, and I know a lot of the nation's in love with Alabama. I have it locally here too. There's a big Alabama contingent near where I live. So, I mean, the thing is that, you're trying to play God, so to speak. I mean, these guys making these decisions and basing it on, and I know what you're saying, Jacob, about the kid, he's third string or whatever, but fact of the matter is the team deserved it. It's a team thing. There's not just one player deserving it or one player got hurt and, oh my God, we can't take a chance in having them play. Look at TCU made it last year. And then Michigan goes and loses to them, but a hell of a game, but a high-scoring game, but nobody expected that either, last year. I'm just saying that, no, I think it was an injustice. I think it was wrong. And, of course, like you said, though, guys, next year is going to be different. It's going to be bigger, wider, and probably not good football. I agree. Next year, too many, 12.
So I agree that they should have been in. I witnessed one of their games. Just because one of your players goes down did not change. It changed how many points they scored per game. It did not change the fact that they won all their games. So they did what they needed to do to win every single game. Who is to say that they couldn't go against Alabama, Texas, Michigan, any of those, and beat them? Because that's why you play the game. So would it maybe it would have been one-sided. They put in the favorites because they want ratings. Let's face it, it's money. It has to do with money. I feel bad for Florida State. I feel bad for every member of that on that team because they really deserve to be in there. And what does that tell them? That they're not good enough? And how does that third string quarterback feel right now? And Travis that got hurt. Like, I'm sick about it. Be honest with you.
Let me say this real quick, and we got to the next. I was going to say this real quick, Candy. If there's anybody that saw right away from the Florida State deal, just thinking, no, it didn't matter. They had 2 losses going into the thing. We'll just say this. If there's anybody that saw what would have happened if they would have had 0 or 1 losses, it's Iowa. If they would have had that. Because they watched that Florida State deal. They would have. It just showed that whole Florida State deal showed that Iowa, even if they would have been undefeated, would have been screwed out. Even if they would have been, because every one of their games, if they would have had it, would have been like 13-10. Like 6 of them this year were like 13-10 or whatever the score, 16-30, 3 points. It's like, and if they would have been undefeated like that, the Florida State thing showed they would have been screwed. So,
But the best, Jacob, they sent out the guy from the ACC to defend their decision.
yeah,
That would be like, okay, right? We're all part of the sports exchange. So, we all think it's a great show. And then Scott coming out and saying, it's not that good of a show. It's pretty bad. You know how horrible that is? It just doesn't make sense.
yeah.
It's your conference. You don't come out there and say that just because you're on the committee. Say, no, somebody else do it. Unless he really felt that way, which is even worse.
No, agreed. But I'm just saying that's really showing it. And what's crazy about that is when I was saying it with Iowa, they literally have to go get themselves a OC that matches the Phil Parker, the defensive coordinator. They have to get someone that matches that, the greatness, and try to get 40 points a game, because it just shows you're not just going to get 13 and get it. And they screwed Florida State, so everybody else is going to get screwed like that from here. They're just selling that right there.
And now I heard that their wide receiver Wilson has come out and said he's not even going to play in the Orange Bowl, which I know is totally unrelated, but that's one of the repercussions. A great player like that, now we're going to be deprived of seeing him play because he's told them to stuff at Florida State. He's going to wait for the NFL draft, and I know that happens in quite a few instances, but that would not have happened. Would not have happened if Florida State was in the playoffs.
Right. And there's, I think, one or two that have entered the transfer portal as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just sad. It's a sad state. And next year when they have 12, is the 13th going to be the one that's going to be saying I got screwed out of, I don't know.
Everybody that's a full defensive. That's what my point was with those when I said the Iowa Florida State deal. So I'm saying anybody that doesn't have a high end offense that that is pretty on TV, gone. I mean it won't be fair.
It happens now in college basketball. They went to 68. There's always a team that feels they should have been in.
Yeah.
But in football, it's completely different. I mean, one loss and you're done. I kind of get it, but it depends on who you lose to. I mean, to me, I still think Georgia belongs in the playoffs. Florida State belongs in the playoffs. Texas definitely belongs there. Washington belongs there. So does Michigan. You can't have 5 teams.
Right.
So that's the problem. If you go through it, Alabama's got to go because they lost to Texas. So they're the first ones I cut. Then after that, who gets cut second? I'm not cutting a team that's undefeated. So Florida State's in no matter what. You can't cut Michigan or Washington. So that's where there was too many teams in that spot this year. If you went with the 6, it's clear cut. If you win your conference, you're in. You can't argue that anymore. There's no second guessing. Whoever did it, it's black and white. This is all gray. And if we come together, if we're the committee, you know what? I don't like Harbaugh, so we're not going to take Michigan. I don't like this. I don't like Florida State's colors or what their AD said, so they're out. You don't know what the criteria is because they went undefeated. What more criteria do you need?
Exactly.
You know who you bring that up, JB. You brought up the 68. You know who would get screwed? I'm not saying out of every tournament, but even in rankings and everything. If he was a coach now, Bob Knight, that slow triangle offense that got about 60 points a game. If he was that close and they had choices, they'd screw him out. Just because everybody on television is looking for pretty and flashy and everything now. And the Bob Knight was all defense and a slow triangle. And it was just the thing. It's like back in those days, it didn't matter. He became a legend because of his time. And it's the truth. There's so many different ways now. It's like it's hard to be a legend. You have to literally be flashy to be the legend now.
Yeah.
Alabama is.
Well, you are listening to the Sports Exchange here tonight. Scott Morgenroth is normally in this driver's seat. He is recovering from a medical procedure today. But if you would like to advertise on any of our platforms, please call him at 954-304-4941. Please hit that red subscribe button in the lower right corner. Subscribe to the South Florida YouTube channel. We are striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, share the broadcast with all of your friends. If you like to hear and listen to the audio version, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You want to be a guest, send us topic ideas at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Okay, on to the next topic. Let's switch it over. Let's go to baseball. Let's talk a little bit. Where do we think Shohei Ohtani is going to land? He's supposedly supposed to be making his decision this weekend. So where do we think he's going to land? We're going to start with JB this time.
It's a great question. My honest opinion, either
Mhm.
San Francisco or Seattle. Where I'd like to see him go, Chicago or the Yankees.
Okay. Okay. George.
I don't know. I heard a comment or two from Dave Roberts of the Dodgers last night, and I know they are making a really big push to sign him. I would never bet against them. I really wouldn't because of the money situation. They seem to always have enough funds available, and of course the Yankees do too. We know that, but I would like to see him in Seattle. I mean, because the Pacific Northwest, they don't. I mean, the Mariners have been a good team, but they're not over the hump. They're not getting into the playoffs at all, or if they are, they don't go very far. That would be my choice in Seattle. And I guess my second choice would be I would have to say the Yankees because the Bronx it's full of so much character and history. Um, and I know they play in a new stadium where a lot of guys that we knew as heroes did not play. But I think it'd be great to see them in pinstripes. But I'm gonna go with Seattle as my favorite though.
Jacob.
To me, the one chance of the Cubs getting them is if they have Saya Suzuki. If they would get that pitcher Yamamoto, I believe, and then they have that. If they would get him, I think they got him. But that's just because they have all the Asian players on the team, the ones that he wants. But truthfully, I think it's Toronto or Seattle. Toronto because Toronto/Vancouver are very Asian areas. Seattle's a very Asian friendly area. I think those type of areas whatsoever. But another thing I want to give to, and I want to give a little shout, not shout out, a shout at to Chris Mad Dog Russo. He's all mad because he wants to make because they want to make this silent because Ohtani wants to make this silent. There's a reason. It's because of you. It's because of you in the media. That's why they want to make it silent. He doesn't want anybody to give away his play. He does. You're all loudmouths. You all you make up things up. Begin with. I mean, we're gonna have that's another thing on the pundit tomorrow night. We're gonna be making fun of thing. The way that they do the media, the way that they will have. Okay, we have to have a contrasting opinion on everything. They make things up. They don't have it. He's trying to keep it silent because of you, Mad Dog Russo. You and the rest. So the big thing about this, I think those deals, but personally to me, I hope he keeps it even more silent until that point. Because this is why I say this stuff, not necessarily for the media. I want us at Tribune South and Sideline Sports to get all of them. So they trust us. I want us to get all the questions in the next few years because they trust us. That we're going to give a good thing. We're going to ask proper questions. And we're not going to make things up, and we're not going to be doing that kind of thing. You understand what I'm saying, JB?
Of course.
Yes. It's like I said, when I blast on the media, it's because I want us to get it all. It's because so we can be fair and we're honest.
So, JB, on the subject of baseball, the New York Yankees are on the verge of landing one of baseball's top hitters, Juan Soto, and Trent Grisham. How do you feel?
I'm not high on anything that the Yankees have done recently. We're going back to what we did in the 80s, where everything's about stars and nothing is about the farm system. See, in the 80s, the Yankees had the best record in baseball. In the 90s, the Yankees won the most World Series in baseball. Which would you rather have? As a Yankee fan, I was thrilled in the 90s. The 80s was fun because I'm a Yankee fan and, my favorite player of all time played, but I enjoyed the 90s much more because we won World Series. They won it by young kids that they brought up and they developed. A guy named Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Jorge Posada, Bernie Williams. They were all in their farm system. They developed them, and they became the core of that team. It's exactly what the Cubs are doing, the Tigers are doing. When you get the right guys and you build them and they grow in the organization, they play together. And then you bring in the right veterans, like they brought in Tino Martinez after Mattingly retired, Scott Rowland, not Scott Rowland, Wade Boggs, Charlie Hayes. They brought in the right guys here and there. John Wetland to be the closer. They found the right veterans to put with the mix with the younger kids, and they won. And it was kind of like what the Cubs did this year with Bellinger. Not that his was more of a show me deal, but it was a great move. A good veteran to have with a lot of young kids, and that's what you have to do. You have to develop guys. You can't just go out and trade to get or sign the best free agents and think you're going to win. It doesn't work that way. Otherwise, the Dodgers would never lose. The Yankees would never lose. Every World Series would be LA, New York. It doesn't work that way.
Jacob, your thoughts on that trade?
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement with that part. But one of the things I feel like when they keep going after millions, I feel like that's the name of Steinbrenner, and Hal has to live up to George. I really believe he gets into that level. But they also forget, like JB said, what did they do? They voted to win in the first place. It's like this was pretty much after George, basically after George was suspended, wasn't it, JB? When they did all that. When they did all that.
Yeah, Gene Michael took over.
Yeah, they did that, and they did it slowly and surely, and they got things back. They got it back, and those are the points of everything. They got to remember. Here's the thing: two things that get the Yankees to be there are those uniforms and the tradition, and that can't even be the stadium anymore because it's a newer stadium. But I'm saying that it's the uniforms and that tradition that gets there. But for them to get something like that, they're going to have to act like the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm sorry to say that. Cardinals had a bad year this year. They're going to have to act like that and be able to get to those levels and get newer and get some younger people and get the, let's just say Baltic Avenue and all those types, that will help them out instead of trying to just bash everything all the time and get $300 million.
George, your thoughts?
Well, it's a tough situation. I know the Yankees are in, obviously. I mean, they've not gotten the postseason regularly. They've not been in the World Series and have not won a World Series in a long time. And just today, 3 out of the top 10 players in the Rule 5 draft were taken from the Yankees. So, what you were talking about, JB, there is a lot of merit to that. Obviously, the Yankees are still doing a good job scouting and conditioning and selecting these guys to play, because the first 2 picks were Mitch Spence and Matt Sauer, and they went to the Oakland Athletics and the Kansas City Royals. And then on the 10th pick, Carson Coleman, a right-handed pitcher, Texas took him from the New York farm system. So there's no question that the Yankees, but for some reason, like you explained, JB, a lot of the mindset has always been big, and bigger, and we got to sign this guy and got to sign that guy. Don't get me wrong. They have developed some people in their system. Of course they have, but they haven't gone full into it. Like you mentioned, the Tigers are, or like maybe the Cubs are, or Cleveland has always been full into it. Tampa Bay is another one, that has been full into development, our own talent here. But like I said, proof in the pudding, 3 of the 10 Rule 5 draft picks were plucked away from the Yankees today. That's a concern of mine if I'm a Yankees fan, because you're giving away youthful people, but you're protecting guys. Don't get me wrong, some of them are really good, but some of them are retreads. And you just can't keep buying and buying and buying. We know what happens when that happens. Most of the times you never win anything if you keep adding to the payroll constantly. There are exceptions to that, of course. But my feeling is that, well, if these big guys want to come to the Yankees, that's all well and good. But, don't forget about the farm system. The farm hands are the ones that will really develop your team. And I'm a firm believer about that, in Major League Baseball.
Agreed. Switching from baseball to football. When I first started this season, I talked about how, and we're going to talk about my Packers. You guys know it, they're near and dear. But we all talked about how we thought, how was Jordan Love going to do, and how was Matt LaFleur was going to do. My question is do you guys think Brian Gutekunst deserves credit for this year? Now, let's go back to the fact that, yes, he got rid of the MVP, Aaron Rodgers, and traded him away. But Alan Lazard had, a $44 million contract. He's now on the Jets. Randall Cobb left the Packers. He's now on the Jets. He's played 7 snaps this year. Let's see. Between Lazard and Cobb, they have played 54 snaps. Offensive lineman Billy Turner played 2 snaps on special teams. Safety Adrian Amos played 7 snaps on defense. Offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett has no answers without Rodgers available to run the show like an orchestra conductor. Sometimes the best transactions are the ones that aren't made. Gutekunst could have re-signed Lazard or Cobb to give Love that much talked about veteran receiver. He could have retained Robert Tonyan or Mercedes Lewis to help the rookie tight ends. He could have brought back Amos, a reliable starter the previous 4 seasons. He could have gone with Jared Reed and or Dean Lowry rather than going young on the defensive line. Lazard and Cobb have a total of 23 catches for the Jets. Rookies Jaden Reed and Devonian Wicks have 56 for the Packers. Tonyan and Lewis have 9 catches for the Bears. Rookies Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft have 40 for the Packers. Amos has 23 tackles for the Jets. Rudy Ford and Jonathan Owens, who were given 1-year deals by the Packers, have combined for 101. Owens was one of the best players on the field against Georgia Lions. So what I'm saying is we were giving all the credit to Jordan Love. Is he going to be good? Is he not going to be good? Matt LaFleur. What do we think about Brian Gutekunst and what he's done? I'm going to start with you, George.
Well, he's done a lot. Let's put it that way. I never, and I haven't been on since Thanksgiving, so I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about the upset that happened in Ford Field. But no, I do give him a lot of credit. I mean, you got Jordan Love. He's 134 yards, I believe, away from 3,000 already. He's got 22 touchdown passes. And the Packers are sitting 6-6. They're still in the hunt for a wild card, along with Minnesota being 6-6. I think that some of the moves certainly look good on paper. I know Aaron Rodgers. They said he called in and talked to McAfee and told him that he's very pleased with the way Love has developed this year at quarterback, and I have to agree with that. I mean, we all knew it was going to be a learning curve, and it still is. Don't get us wrong. I mean, it still is. I mean, this is his first full season at the helm. But I think Jordan has done a really good job. Some of the players that you mentioned, Candy, that, wanted to go or Rodgers wanted them to go to New York, haven't worked out. And of course, his injury was just horrible, as far as the Jets season goes, Rodgers himself. So, yeah, I would say management has done a pretty good job. I mean, it's tough being a general manager in the NFL, and it's difficult. And Detroit seems to have gotten, a real good guy and a new regime in there. And sometimes, whether he's new or not, but the question is that can you improve upon this? You're the Packers. You want to make it better this year. Yes, you still got time, but next year as well. So the total jury might be out on him, but yeah, I think he's done a good job at the helm. I really do. I think he's done okay so far. And despite all the losses that have happened with players moving around and hiring and a lot of injuries too. Come on, let's face it. I mean, the Packers have been hurt with so many injuries. So they're doing well. They're doing well at 6-6, and they sure shocked a lot of Lions fans and a lot of people around America with that win on Thanksgiving Day.
JB.
So I added up the snaps as you were talking. It comes out, I think, to 71 if you include Rodgers. That is absurd. That is, listen, just for that alone, executive of the year, to get rid of all that money on the salary cap for 71 snaps. That's not even a game for one player. So that alone. And then, I mean, as far as the development of Jordan Love, I'm glad to see what he's doing. It's hard to be behind an MVP and have them leave and you get forced into starting and taking over for that person. To see him have a little bit of success, I'm glad for him because that's a lot of weight on his shoulders. He's stepping up to the challenge. He's doing what he needs to do. LaFleur showing that he's, a good coach by actually winning games without Aaron Rodgers. And you know what? It's actually a football team that you pay attention to and you can actually take some pride in without hearing stupid comments and all the distractions. It's about football. It's not about anything else. And I'm glad to see what they're doing. It's a fun thing to see.
Jacob.
Let me say this part right here before I go into Gutekunst, by the way. Let me say this. I was wrong. I was wrong about Jordan Love. I mean, there aren't too many things I'm wrong about, but I will call it out when I see it. I was wrong. And he's gone well past the thought process that I had because I said 0 wins as a Packer. I missed. Now that I got that part out of the way, let me say this thing here. Gutekunst is doing a tremendous job with this. And he is the example of what I keep talking about with, like, especially with Bears and Steelers fans and all these others that keep wanting to tear apart the minute they have an incomplete pass. This is the point I say what he's doing. He is getting rid of all the older people. He's letting the young ones play, but he's getting rid of stupid contracts. They can be able to get into drafts. They can do all these things. This is what I mean when I'm on the social media of any type and I say replace them properly. That's when I'm saying the coach, the quarterbacks, any of the players. When you hate them and you play an emotional nitwit on everything and want to kill everything, replace them properly because otherwise you get the one winning season in 11 years Chicago Bears after Lovie Smith. Replace properly. And that's what happens. Lovie Smith is what happens when you listen to fans go absolutely anal on the radio, and everything like that, and just going all that. That's what happened when you did that, and he was 10-6, and you let him go. You just have to. I mean, and now there were Packers fans this year that wanted to get rid of LaFleur, even though he's 13-4 for a couple of years when they were 2-6. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to do that because they're emotional nitwits. That's why you don't listen to them. What Gutekunst has done with all this young team, with all of this right here, is built something around. He's done this. This is the proper way to do it. And it's like, I wish more fans would listen, but I guess you wouldn't make as much money from people with patience.
And I think one of the things that we're losing track of, too, is I believe the Packers had 13 draft picks last year. 11 of them are currently on the Packers roster, 53-man roster right now. So that means you're hitting on a lot of your draft picks to have them still with you and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's go around the horn. What game of the NFL ticket this week are you most looking forward to?
Who do we
JB,
start
we'll
with?
start with you.
Me, Dallas against Philly. I think Philly is going to be angry after the beatdown that they had at home. And I think that they're going to finally quiet the Dallas fans. We don't have to hear them anymore this year.
Jacob.
This is part of my the final point, so don't put to me. This is part of mine, okay? This is what it was going to be, so we're going to go here. Pittsburgh and New England. Bad game on paper, bad game on the deal. But This is the Super Bowl of Mitchell Trubisky. This really is. And the reason I say that, I'm using this as part of the deal, is because look at how many players that played in the league, like a Flacco or any of those former Super Bowlers, former playoffs, former everything, that are now just wanting to get in there. Now they're back in the third stringers again. These had legitimate credentials, and they're gone now. If New England is a miserable offensive team, a miserable team in general, if he can't get anywhere there with that game, even winning 17-6 or something, if he can't do his job, it is over as far as next year. He'll still play out the month. But wherever he goes and whatever he gets as a starter, he will be in the same boat as the Tim Boyles of the world. So that's the game I want to look forward to seeing, because is he still going to have a chance of starting anywhere or even high-end backup, or is this it? So whatever. So I'm going to be watching that one.
George.
Well, Andy, there's a lot of good ones to choose from, of course. I mean, you got the Rams going to Baltimore, and that juggernaut in Baltimore. Can the Rams stop them? That one looks really exciting. Seattle at San Francisco is coming up. You got a doubleheader on Monday Night Football. Tennessee at Miami and Green Bay at the Giants. So those aren't that good of attractions to me. I'm going to have to still go with Detroit and Chicago. Justin Field and the Bears gave Detroit fits, as you guys know, in Ford Field. And the question's going to be the weather. I've been looking at the weather and studying it a little bit, and it looks like it's going to be a very wet and damp day. The Midwest is supposed to get rain and some of it changing to snow over the weekend. So this is going to be a test for Detroit, because, as you know, they love playing in the dome stadiums in the controlled climate, but they are not the best when it comes to playing outdoor under the old conditions that George used to see at Tiger Stadium when he had season tickets. Yes, I did. I was only 17 or 18, 19. I don't know what age I was, and I had season tickets at Tiger Stadium. So the way football used to be played, as you guys know, especially from the Midwest, and Candy, you know that, with the Packers, and Jacob with the Bears. All I'm saying is that it was a nice bounce back for Detroit last week, but they almost blew it against New Orleans. And now they got to face Chicago again. So to me, and it's not just because I live here, that is going to be an interesting game. That's an early game, of course, 1 o'clock. But there are a lot of other good ones, but I'm going to keep my eyes on that one. I still favor the Lions, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any stretch or anything like that. I think it's going to be a close game.
I think Bills Chiefs is going to be an interesting game. You know, the Chiefs got, beat by Green Bay, and I think they're out and they're at home. But I think that might be a really good game. And you never know. The Packers against the Giants. They're not at home, but they're going against Tommy DeVito. So we'll see. That'll be interesting.
Hey, he's got a 2-game winning streak.
Yeah,
Exactly. So if you want to go around and do a parting shot, anybody? Jacob,
I did mine.
You did yours. JB?
The NBA in-season tournament, I got a chance to watch the Pacers against the Celtics on Monday night. It's December, 4th, Monday night. The crowd was going crazy. Like, it was the NBA Finals. The players were so into it. Chest bumping, playing hard, which you don't see a lot of the NBA. They were playing like it was a playoff game. On December 4th, they were into it. There was so much excitement. Everything mattered. It was great to see. This is definitely a success. I don't know if I love it in December, because you're dealing with the start of college basketball, college football going on, and there's just so much happening with everything going on in sports. But I get why they do it, because nobody pays attention usually to the beginning of the year NBA. But I think this is a huge success. I can't wait to see how they make it better going forward.
George?
Well, my parting shot is going to be a very pleasant one, and that's to congratulate Jim Leyland on entering the Baseball Hall of Fame. You know, when I saw that list, in fact, we talked about this on 108 Stitches with Scott and some of the guests we had on that night. And all four of those guys deserve it. I'm sorry. Cito Gaston, what a remarkable career. What a remarkable record with the Toronto Blue Jays. You got Lou Piniella, who was around forever as a player, a good player, and as a manager and a coach. And then, of course, Davey Johnson. And I always admired Davey, not only as a ball player, when he played the Baltimore Orioles, played the Detroit Tigers. I mean, Davey Johnson was just phenomenal. Not as good as Brooks Robinson at third, but Davey played a great second base and, of course, became a good, solid manager. So I didn't really know. I really didn't. I was not all that confident that Leland would get the call. And the fact that he's the only one that got enough votes, I don't like that at all. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of deserving people on that ballot. Say what you want about Joe West. I know he was a showman at times as an umpire. Bill White of the Yankees. Come on, that guy had a great career in the broadcast booth and in the management for the Yankees and in Major League Baseball. But Jim Leland, the Marlboro Man, Lucky Strike Man, whatever you want to call him, what a great job you did here, buddy. And Detroit, you got to realize you're blessed because you had George Sparky Anderson, and yes, he made the Hall of Fame. And now you got Jim Leland making the Hall of Fame. So it's a terrific situation. Everybody in Detroit is happy. And of course, he touched so many other areas too. Pittsburgh Pirates, Florida Marlins, and not too long with the Colorado Rockies. But Leland, congratulations, Jimmy, and enjoy the festivities when you get to Cooperstown, because I know you will.
My parting shot is happy birthday to all those that have birthdays in the beginning of December. On December 2nd, it was Aaron Rodgers' birthday. December 3rd was mine and my niece's, Bria. Yesterday happened to be my father-in-law's birthday. Tomorrow would have been my mother-in-law's birthday. And today, happy birthday to NBA star great Giannis Antetokounmpo. It is the Greek Freak's birthday today, so happy birthday to him. So, with that, let's go around the horn and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. We're going to start with you, George.
All right. I've got a book there, and I'm congratulating Scott on his book. Obviously, I was honored to be asked to write the foreword for your book, Scott. So I know that you're pretty hard up picking me, but hey, I appreciate you doing so. And I have a book too. It's been out for a while, but Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air talks about the history of sports in Detroit and Michigan. There's a link to that book at the end of my column. I write for Scott and Candy at the South Florida Tribune under the Motor City Tribune. Drill down to that, our special, unique Detroit news and sports section. And you can reach me too on the internet, at Sanji Sports 99 on Twitter, and also on Yahoo at gicorn@yahoo.com. And follow me here on the Sports Exchange and Pundit's Pundit, 108 Stitches, wherever Scott needs me, inside the pigskin. So great being part of the show again tonight.
JB, how can people get a hold of you?
JB_ the program on X. Sideline Sports every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Wednesday in the morning at replays on WDJY 99.1. Soon to be on NGBN TV. Right now we're on the website every Tuesday night. DBTV. And, here, of course, Confidential, which is in its off season. So lots of different places.
Awesome. Jacob, how can people find you?
5 shows a week across Tribune South and across South Florida Tribune and Sideline Sports. Sometimes 6 if I'm off the bench. Jake the Pundit on Twitter, Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok, a bunch of other places on social media where I'm completely shy and you can't tell I'm there.
So, yes, Scott has a book. He just came out recently. It is on Amazon and on Kindle. Lessons from the Microphone. Go out, get it, buy it. It's a great Christmas gift for people, especially if they want to get into media or anything like that. It talks about how media has changed over the years, and he has lots and lots of stories, believe it or not. Scott has stories. Yes, stories to tell. It's in there. Go get the book, read it. If you like our show, though, This is only one of a plethora of shows we have. We have 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We have Inside the Pigskin. We have Pundit's Pundit. We have, obviously, Sports Exchange. We have No Limits. We have, Scott started a new show, One-on-One, Motor City Madmouth show. We have Professor and the Pupil. We have Fire Up Wisconsin, Fire Up Michigan, Fire Up Florida. Go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can read some of Scott's writings that aren't in the book. You can read what George wrote. We have a bunch of writers. Jacob, you've written for us before. It has been a little bit of a time frame.
It is a time crunch, but you're going to get one pretty soon, actually. I got another one.
Awesome. But we have lots of things on our website. And yes, the NGTV, we're really excited that that's going to be starting. We're on their website as well. Catch Sideline Sports. They're one of our partners. We work together hand in hand. We're going to keep growing, both of us. So subscribe to us, subscribe to them, listen to our podcast. If you want to be a guest or if you have ideas for our shows, email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you listen to the podcast, listen wherever you get your podcast. If you want to advertise, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Scott will be back in the seat tomorrow night, and he'll be back next week. We wish him all the best. Any other parting shot? Any closing thoughts, guys?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Candy. Happy birthday to you and many more.
And Candy, we regret tomorrow night because that top square is going to get a little bit uglier.
I didn't say it. Well, thanks, everyone. It's been a great show. See you next time.
Take care.